Hello, welcome to Chapter 7, Processes. So what is a process? A process is a set of activities that take a collection of inputs, perform some kind of work or activities with those inputs, and then yields a set of outputs. So if you think about the chocolate factory line, right, or the assembly line, the chocolate is the input, right? The chocolate coming down on the conveyor belt. They're supposed to wrap the chocolates in paper and then pass it down still along the conveyor belt for packaging or final packaging. That's the process. How should a process work? There are different ways to do this. You have a process flow diagram where it's a graphical way to describe the process. It uses boxes to depict resources and arrows to depict flows and triangles to depict inventory location. A process scope is the set of activities that's included in the process. So for example, still using the chocolate, what's in scope in packaging the chocolate? It's, the chocolate comes on the belt, and then you put it in the paper, and then you put the wrapped chocolate back on the conveyor belt for it to get sent to the customer. What is not in scope in this example is eating the chocolate or putting it in your hat or in your bosom so you can keep up. Process selection refers to deciding on the way production of goods or services will be organized. It has implications for capacity planning, how you're going to lay out the facilities, equipment, and design of work systems. So when you're thinking about what is the right process or the right way to get something done, you have to think about how many people do you need, right? So using Lucy again with the chocolate example, just she and Ethel working in that little room by themselves was not enough, at least not at the rate or the pace at which the chocolate was coming in, right? Chocolate was coming in too quickly for the two of them to keep up. The layout is also to be considered, right? Should there be another line where more chocolate is coming in and more workers? Should they have equipment instead of manually trying to wrap the chocolate? Should there be a machine that's wrapping the chocolate based on the speed at which the chocolate is coming in? And then there are work systems that you want to think about the design of those systems as well. When you're thinking about the designing the process, right? Processes should be designed so they can create all products and services which the operation is likely to introduce. Products and services should be designed in such a way that they can be created effectively. And when you think about whether it's a product or a service, you have to think about the approach and designing the process is probably very different depending on what it is. These are some common process mapping symbols if you are supposed to draw a process map to help explain how the process is working. So process strategy, right? How do you design a process and how should the process work? Right, when you're thinking about a process, is to produce offerings that meet customer requirements within cost and other managerial constraints. So a lot of time people might design a process, right, and they're trying to cut costs, so they'll have less people work. Excuse me, they'll have less people working, right? But that doesn't mean the quality is going to be good with that current process. So sometimes you have to do a trade-off between cost and benefit. How do you produce a process strategy looks at how to produce a product or a service that meets or exceeds customer requirements, meets cost and managerial goals, and has long-term effect on efficiency, production flexibility, cost, and quality. Key aspects of process strategy are capital intensity, meaning the mix of equipment and labor that you'll use, and is the process flexible enough, meaning if the volume increases or the speed of the line increases, can you respond quickly enough to keep up with the expected output? You also want to make sure that there's a sustainable way of producing goods and services. As we're looking, in this time, or not really economy, but this time, right? A lot of companies are focused now on, how can they be more sustainable? So you want to minimize your waste and damage to the economy. So that there are four basic strategies or four basic process strategies. You have process focus, repetitive focus, product focus, and mass customization. Within these basic strategies, there are many ways that these might be implemented. When you're selecting which process to work, Key questions to ask yourself are, how much variety will there be in the process that you'll need to handle? And how much volume should the process be able to handle? So the first one is process focus. The facilities are organized around specific activities or processes, right? There, you have general purpose equipment and skilled personnel. Have a high degree of product flexibility, meaning the offering that you're offering, the product you're offering or the service you're offering, it's highly flexible. You can do this today, that tomorrow. And then it has typically high costs and low equipment utilization. And product flows may vary considerably, making planning and scheduling a challenge. So this, for me, when you think of process focus, is more on a service environment, right? So you think about a hospital, you think about a doctor's office or a dentist's office, right? So process focus has a low volume, high variety, intermittent processes. So you go to the doctor, right? So I go to Westmed, or I use Westmed for, my family, medical concerns. So, there'll be a general practitioner or your internist for a regular checkup. Then if you have a child, there's a pediatrician, right? So each of these areas are very specialized. High volume for the total facility, but each specialization within the medical facility, right? They're low volume but high variety, meaning each doctor is offering a different service. There's a gastroenterologist, then there's a gynecologist, then there's a urologist, right? So there are all these specializations. That's why it says high variety, but low volume for each person visiting the specialist. So you have many inputs, so surgeries, sick patients, baby deliveries, emergencies, many departments and many routings, and many different outputs because each patient's illness is unique. And scheduling is different because you don't know where, you have some idea after a while, right? But it's hard to figure out how much staff you need for each department because you don't know where the illnesses are going to come from in any given week. So process layout, when you think about the advantages and disadvantages, they can handle a large variety of processing requirements. They're not particularly vulnerable to equipment failure. General purpose equipment is often less costly, and it's possible to use individual incentive systems. Disadvantages, you can have a lot of inventory waiting around or a lot of people waiting around to get served. Scheduling and routing is a challenge. Equipment utilization rates are low because it's so specialized. It's more one-on-one or personal service as opposed to having a lot of equipment in the doctor's office. Material handling is slow. It reduces spans of supervision, meaning you have to trust and rely on the people that are working for you or with you. And that special attention is needed for each product or customer. The next process strategy is repetitive focus, right? And you use this with assembly lines. It's characterized by modules with parts and assemblies made previously. So when you think about a car assembly line, right, it's really, really just pulling in bits and pieces of something and then they're clamping them together, right? So you have raw materials and module inputs coming in, such as engines and wheels, right? They're combined to give you the same vehicle, right? And then the modules are combined for many options. So many combinations of motorcycles based on what customers are saying they want. Next one is the product focus. Next process strategy is product focus. Facilities are organized by products. So if you think about consumer goods, such as Frito-Lays, or even, I'm trying to think. I'm just thinking Frito-Lays or anywhere that produces several varieties of foods, right? Each product line is going to be focused on a specific item. So you have a long continuous production runs, enable efficient processes, right? Typically high fixed costs, but low variable costs, and less skilled labor. So within a plant, right? So now you start thinking about different plants. Within that plant, right, you'll have one section that makes Frito-Lay's potato chips, then another does the Doritos, then another section does something else. And a shift will run for 8 hours, then they'll stop and clean the line. And then they'll, run another 8 hours, something else, and then stop and clean the line. You can also have one section and many lines running potato chips, right? So one line will do the 3 ounce, another will do the 5, and another will do the 4. Or you can have one line sharing the 3 and 5. So they'll run the 3 ounce for 8 hours, and they'll run the 5 ounce for 8 hours. Then they'll switch, clean up, and then switch it, change it again. So some advantages of product layout strategy: high rate of output because it can just run non-stop, low unit costs, labor specialization, low material handling costs per unit, high utilization of labor and equipment. Disadvantage is people can get bored just running the same thing over and over, right? It's not very challenging. Poorly skilled workers may not maintain equipment or quality of the output. And then there's used, sometimes in some companies you have high turnover, right? If the job doesn't require skilled labor, right? So then you're just going to pay probably minimum wage. So those people will always be in and out the doors, a revolving door with those kind of workers. And the other thing I spoke about with line changeovers is there's constant cleaning and equipment maintenance. Mass customization, the rapid low-cost production of goods and services to increase, to satisfy increasingly unique customer desires. So this is the fourth process strategy. So if you think about Invisalign, right, it's all, or even just regular dentures, it's all built on one base plastic material, and it's customized based on your teeth. So it's the same process or the same base process, right? But then they'll customize it based on your needs. Think about like if you're getting a new computer as well, right? Dell came up with a process where they'll have a variety of chips and hard drives and so on, different configurations, and they'll offer you those different configurations, and that's the one you purchase. And you can take it even further and say, hey, I need a little bit more storage, so you wait an extra 2 days to get that item so it's already the base model that is mass production, and then they'll customize it a little bit if you want more space, a little bit more hard drive, or if you want more faster memory processing. So additional examples here would be bicycle and vehicle types. Websites are customized, right? Compared to back in the 70s. The amount of apps that are out there, the amount of movies, the amount of items being sold in the supermarkets. So many different brands now. So many different brands now than there used to be. And all they did is tweak something, maybe a little more salt, a little bit more sugar, or less sugar, and so on, just to try and get you to spend money. So benefits here is that it's imaginative product design. You have flexible process design, tight schedules, tight inventory management, and responsive partners in the supply chain. So comparing the different processes. So process focus, once again, small quantity, large variety of products, skilled, educated workforce, repetitive assembly line, right? Modular assembly, so long runs, and moderately trained employees. Product focus, high volume, low variety, such as potato chips, so large quantity, long runs, but less skilled. Oh yeah, excuse me, I don't know what's wrong. Sorry, but less broadly skilled operators. Mass customization, large quantity and large variety of products, and flexible operators. And we'll just skip that part. Okay, focus processes. Focus brings efficiency. Focus can be on customers, product, service, or technology. They allow you to be flexible, more competitive. They might be more difficult and expensive to operate, and without it, change may mean starting over. When you're thinking about a process design or analysis, the question is the process designed to achieve a competitive advantage? So if you go back here, these were in McDonald's at some point. I think they probably stepped away from it because I don't think they were well received by customers, right? But you could come in and order at the kiosk, and then you'd wait. I felt the wait was longer when you used the kiosk to order than when you actually spoke to a cashier. So, right, so when they were designing the process, they probably asked themselves these questions, but the answer is not right. Is the process designed to achieve competitive advantage? Does the process eliminate steps that do not add value? Does the process maximize customer value? And will the process win orders? So if you used to, when you went into a McDonald's and it used to take you maybe 5, maybe 10 minutes at most, you go in, within 5 minutes, you're in and out with your food. And then when they move to those machines that you had to order from, and it's a longer line, it's a long wait there, and then a longer wait, to get the food from the cashier, and it's just a lot more waiting. So now it's taking 15 minutes versus 5, maybe 7 minutes to get a meal. No, it's not winning orders because people are getting frustrated, right? And it was something I realized that made me think about, when I've been teaching this topic for a few years, but at the same time when the machines came out, I taught this. And now that I'm thinking about it, what I realize is the machines were processing the orders faster than the cashiers used to process the orders, right? And so it created a backlog or a bottleneck, which you will study in 7S, in chapter 7S. But you were creating a bottleneck now in terms of the food being processed and packaged. So customers were placing their orders faster, but they didn't anticipate the backlog that was being created in the back end, in the kitchen, where the staff was inadequate to process the amount of orders. Anyone who's Jamaican, you'll know it's the same story at the KFC in Jamaica, right? You can be at the KFC for 90 minutes or 2 hours waiting on chicken and French fries. It's ridiculous. Who would do that? But people wait. People wait. I couldn't do it on a regular basis. But anyway. So moving on here. So this is an example of making hamburgers, right? A hamburger assembly process. Remember we spoke about the circle and the arrows and the square. So what this is saying is to prepare the hamburger in the McDonald's, right? You're going to take the meat out of the patty storage. You transfer it to the broiler. It's in the broiler. Visual inspection, transfer to a rack, temporary storage. You get the buns, the lettuce, etc. You assemble to order and you place it on the finished rack. So the expectation here is that from the time you place an order for your burger to when it's ready should be 3 minutes and 15 seconds. But on most time, it takes much longer than that. But that is the goal. This here is called value stream mapping. It's another way of looking at a process. It tells you how long each stage should last, right? And then how many people you need to operate at each stage and what function is covering each area. So it tells you what's value added and what's non-value added, meaning non-value added is contributing to the end process, and value added is contributing to the end process or the output and how long the process takes. This is another example of a flow map, what they call it service blueprinting, or process map, or value stream map, right? So it looks again at each level and each function, like who is doing what and how long it should take. And these little diamonds tell you what decision has to be made, yes, no, and then you move to the next step. So it's just different ways to represent a process. So when a process doesn't work, you have to think about redesigning it, right? Why is it broken? So McDonald's, I believe, probably went back to the drawing board and said, hey, we overlooked something, right? These machines are great. We're able to process orders faster. But unless we completely redesign the kitchen and redesign, how burgers and everything gets processed in the back end, it's not working. Right. So what it does, you rely on reevaluating the purpose of the process. You reevaluate the underlying assumptions of the process. And then you have to, it requires examination of the basic process and its objectives. And any activity that you do can be a candidate for redesign. Technology is supposed to make processes easier, but doesn't always help. There's several steps that you can look at for process improvement, and you find that in the text, and that's it.